So let's look at some of the options of choosing color. I'm going to create a brand new document, press Command N on the Mac or Control N in Windows. And let's start here by choosing Print so we know that we're going to have a CMYK document. And click OK. All right, and let's just draw a shape on the screen. It could be anything you want. I'll just take a boring old rectangle and I'll draw it on here. Doesn't really matter what shape you have. I'll go and get the selection tool back. If you're looking to choose a specific color, a good place to go is to the color panel. And that's the first panel up here on the top. And that's assuming that you're running the Essentials workspace and you haven't modified it too much. And let's pop that out. Now, if you don't see these sliders, you want to make sure to show the options. Click the little down arrow here. You can hide options if you don't want to see them, but I'm going to leave them up. Now, because this is a CMYK document, it's a print document, I have sliders here for CMYK. Now, the default color is just a plain white fill. That's why the box here is white. So you can start dialing in various amounts of C, M, Y, and K and put them in however you like. You can move the sliders around. If you know specific percentages you want to use, you can type them in here. You could also click here in the color ramp. Now, if this color ramp is a little too small, you can put your mouse pointer on the bottom and just kind of drag out a little bit. Ooh, isn't that pretty? So you can simply choose a color, and when you choose a color here with the eyedropper tool, you notice it shows you what those values of C, M, Y, and K are. Here's something else that's kind of neat. When I'm clicking, I'm just doing a regular old mouse click to choose the color. And when I choose the color, it's not just the box. You can see also that it's the fill color that's changing. If you want to set the stroke color without having to come here and click the stroke color and bring it to the front, what you could do is hold down the Option key on the Mac or the Alt key in Windows, and when you do that, notice down here, you're setting the color of the stroke. So that saves you a little bit of trouble there. If you want to set this to RGB for whatever reason, maybe you're running an RGB document and for some reason this is set at CMYK, click back on the little drop-down arrow and I can choose RGB. By the way, you notice there are a couple of other color spaces. Grayscale is just what it sounds like, just various shades of gray. Let's go back in there. You also have what's called HSB. That's hue, saturation, and brightness. I'm not going to talk about that in detail, but it's simply a method of choosing first what is the overall color, then how much of it is in there, and then what's the brightness. There's also this WebSafe RGB, which you can pretty much ignore because WebSafe colors are pretty much ancient, so don't even worry about that. So let me set this to RGB. And now we have sliders for RGB, and just like before, I can drag the sliders back and forth. I can click a color in here to choose. I can hold down the Option key on the Mac or the Alt key in Windows and click to set the stroke color. One other little thing that's in here that we didn't have in CMYK is you see we have this little code here, £, and then 6 characters, some letters, some numbers. Now, if you're not familiar with that, you might be wondering, oh, what the heck is that all about? That's for web development. And if you're going to go and code web pages, this is the code that you use to set color. I'm not going to talk about that in detail, but you'll notice that there are 6 characters. First 2 characters set the red value, second 2 characters set the green value, and the last 2 colors set the blue value. Something else that's really nice is that we can take the inverse or the complement of a particular color. And let me explain what that means. I'm going to choose a specific color. Let's go in here, and I want to make this, let's say, red of 140. Just hit the Tab key, green of 79, hit the Tab key, and blue of 158. Okay, very nice color. By the way, you notice the color values go from 0 to 255 for each one. So 0 to 255 red, 0 to 255 green, and the same for blue. Now, when you have that color on there, again, click on this drop-down arrow, and you see you have these 2 choices, invert or complement. Let's choose invert. And you see, I went from this purplish to a greenish. And let's go back and I'll invert it again. And I'll go back to the purplish. Now let's see what happens when I get the complement of a color. Let's go back here and choose complement. And now it's kind of a greenish. And we can hit that and hit complement and come back. So you might wonder, well, okay, that's all well and good, but what's going on? What's really happening? Inverted color means that it changes each component of a color to the opposite value on the color scale. Now I said just before that color values go from 0 to 255. So if you have an RGB color with a red value of 140, then the invert command will subtract that 140 from 255, and the inverted red will have a value of 115. And you have a green value of 79, Illustrator will subtract 79 from 255. And we had a blue of 158, it subtracts that from 255. And that's what that inverted color is. Now, complementary color is a little different. Complementary colors will change to the color on the opposite side of a color wheel. And what Illustrator does, it adds the highest and lowest numbers to come out with a number, and then it subtracts those numbers. So, for example, if we have these same values here of red, green, and blue, the highest plus the lowest equals 237. And then it takes those original values, subtracts those from 237, and gives you the resulting colors. Let's see that work. We have our original box, and we can see there's the 140, 79, 158. When you click that and you choose invert, now you can see you have about 115, 176, 97. That's off by one, not really sure why. Some rounding going on, and internally in the software, and when you switch back and forth, sometimes a value will change by one. But let's take a look at the complementary color, though before we do that I think we should invert back to the original numbers. So I'll go back up here to the menu and choose invert. So now we have our original numbers again of 140, 79, and 158. When I hit that and I come down to complement, I can see there's the math that I showed you just before, 97, 158, and 79. Let me set this back here again. You can choose the complement of a color by control clicking on the color panel. So I'm just going to randomly click on a color. Maybe I'll choose green. Now, clicking it, of course, I can just click that same old green, I'll undo. But if I hold down the Command key on the Mac or the Control key in Windows, notice that chooses the complement of the color. So that's a nice little time saver. Now, once you've chosen a color that you like, maybe you dialed in some values, you can save that. So I'll choose something over here, and I'll boost up the green a little bit, bring down the blue. So this is a custom color. The way you save it is this. Bring up the swatches panel. Now, if I simply click the swatches panel, by default, this color panel is going to go away. So I'm going to drag this out here onto the page. Now I'll click the swatches panel, stretch it out here a little bit. And now I can take this color and I'll just drag this color into the panel. You notice that there's a little plus sign there, and the mouse pointer is going to look a little different on a Windows machine. But now I have that color here, so I can use it later on. In the next lesson, we'll take a look at how to use the swatches panel.